So yeah, good morning everyone. Good morning and good afternoon, Scott. So thanks for joining EliteCISOs weekly session. These are the session we deliver every Thursday, 11 o'clock India time. And I'm proud to say that there's a lot of knowledge that being shared through these sessions. And this is, I think, our past almost 2.5 years. Every Thursday we are delivering these sessions. So if you have been attending, you know that we have talked a lot about different topics around cybersecurity. So whether it is zero trust, EDR, MDR, XDR, we covered a lot of topics around it. But one topic around data security did not get enough attention as it should have got. So that's what we are going to cover today. As you see, the title is Building a Data First Security Model, the challenges and the benefit that you get out of this model. So as you know, COVID changed a lot of things, right? So instead of working from office, everybody is kind of working remotely now. And there was a conception that, OK, data has to be within the boundary and, within the office limits, you can secure and you can control how the data exchange happens. And COVID changed everything. Employees are working remotely, still work is being done. And again, there's a lot of focus on data security as well as part of the overall changes that COVID has brought in. So this very interesting topic around how do you ensure your data is secure and building a data first security model is the topic that the eminent speakers will be discussing today. I think Rishi is going to be little delayed. He did ping about it. So we have three eminent speakers for now and Rishi will be joining later. So before we dive into the proceedings, let's have a quick round of introductions from the Varonis team and then we'll get going. So let's start with Maheshwaran. Maheshwaran, over to you.
Thank you so much, Vikas. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Wanted to first thank you all for taking time on a fiscal year end and really excited to do our first event with EliteCISO and looking forward to engage more with you all. So I'm Maheshwaran and I'm the country manager for Varonis India. Have around 20 years of experience in information security. Started as a technical consultant, then moved into process consulting, and then now into sales. So really looking forward to do this session and hear everyone's thoughts around it.
Awesome, thank you. Let's cover India first and then we'll go to Australia. So Ravish, over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Vikas. Hi, good morning, everyone. Such a pleasure to be on this platform of EliteCISO and talking to you all today. My name is Ravish and I look after the sales for the region North and East. And of course, data is something very close to a lot of enterprises today. And I think we are going to look at a lot of interesting use cases that we can deliver through our platform in the session. And otherwise, I'll be connected with most of you during the course. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ravish. Over to you, Scott.
And yes, from Melbourne, thanks, Vikas. My name's Scott Leach. I'm the Vice President for Asia Pacific and Japan for the Varonis business. I've been with Varonis for a relatively short period of time, probably just over 6 months or so now. But interesting, just tying back to Vikas, what you said earlier, I used to work in the sort of MDR, XDR endpoint space. And so it's been an interesting transition for me to move from that space into the data space. A lot of the organizations that I talk to have invested a lot in that MDR, XDR, SIEM, SOC, endpoint space to try and protect their organizations almost from people getting in. But I think the kind of the reality of the space we find ourselves in today is that attackers are after your data. And so I think there's a lot of benefit to taking this data first security approach. And so, yeah, really excited to kind of talk to the team and to the audience today about what we do and how we do it.
Awesome, Scott. Thanks a lot. Let's look at what the agenda is going to look like. So as I said, initial introduction till 11:05. It's already 11:05, I believe. So I'll rush a little bit. So 11:05 till 11:50, we will have Varonis session. And then there'll be a presentation, then we will have a panel discussion, there'll be a product demo and a risk assessment as well, showing how it works. So there's a lot to be covered in 40-45 minutes and we need to finish it by 11:50. So that's how the flow is going to look like. At 11:50, we'll stop the session, we'll stop the presentation, we'll get into the closing proceedings. As part of the closing, we will have a live Q&A. So if you want to ask live question, you can raise your hand and we will unmute and you can ask your question. But during the session, if you have any question, you can put it on chat as well. We have different panel members from Varonis and they can answer then and there itself. So don't wait till the end. You can ask your question during the session as well. I will share the password to download your participation certificate. This certificate is very important because this will be used as a LinkedIn contest. And then we will do our legacy Wheel of Fortune. And as part of Wheel of Fortune, we have 2 soundbar as a giveaway today. And apart from it, it's very exciting that we have this LinkedIn contest as well. And 3 giveaways for LinkedIn contest are Apple AirPods. So thanks Varonis team for that. And it is always very interesting to see the LinkedIn contest, right? So next, I'll explain quickly how the LinkedIn contest is going to work for you guys. So what you have to do to participate in the LinkedIn contest is you have to go to LinkedIn and follow Elite CISO handle. You have to follow Varonis handle, and then you have to share your learnings from the session on LinkedIn. OK, what you have to share is you have to download your participation certificate. I will show how you can download the certificate, upload that certificate along with your learnings from the session, tag Elite CISO in your post, tag Varonis in your post. That's about it. OK, it is as simple as this. I will show you a couple of examples how the previous winners or previous post of winners look like. So Dhaval Pandya won last time. We had a session with Micro Focus, and again, as part of LinkedIn contest, the AirPods were given away. OK, so this is how the post looks like. He has summarized his learning. He has tagged the company Micro Focus for previous sessions. So you have to tag Varonis, you have to tag Elite CISO, and then you have to share all the learning along with the certificate, right? This was a certificate that you can download. We will share how it can be done. And then this is from Udit, again a very good learning post he had done. This is from my friend Ashish Chandra Mishra, Director Information Security at Unilever. So see how he has written, tagged Elite CISO and Rubric company at that time, learnings from the session and this certificate, right? That's what you got to do. So very simple, follow Elite CISO, follow Varonis, upload certificate and share your learning on the on LinkedIn, right? That's what the contest is going to look like. Now, last but not the least, we throw this challenge every time, stand and attend. And why we throw this challenge? Because if you're going to sit the entire day, whether you're working from home or you're going to office, you might have all these problems like foggy brain and all those things. We do not want you to have foggy brain, because if you have a foggy brain, you will not be able to win in the LinkedIn contest. So take this challenge and stand like I'm standing. If you stand, you will have all these benefits on the right hand side. You will have less pain in your body, your posture will improve. And apart from all this, you will have a better brain function. If you have a better brain function, you can learn better, you can grasp the knowledge, and then you can win on the LinkedIn contest as well. With this, let me transfer it over to Scott for the session. And if you're accepting the challenge, please go to the chat and say yes, because we love that energy. So over to you, Scott.
Hi, Vikas. So I'll share my screen and
Sure.
we'll get going. Wish I had known about this stand-up challenge, and I hope I don't have a foggy brain because I don't have a desk to stand and deliver this presentation. Just give me a minute while I share my screen.
Awesome. So next time what we'll do is, before we engage with any vendor and talk about the sessions, we will tell them you have to accept this challenge before you come to the Elite CISO platform.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. So again, I hope you can see my screen, Vikas.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Great. So just want to thank again the entire audience for participating in the session. And like Vikas and Scott mentioned, we were just debating on what should be the topic for our session today. And we thought, probably having a topic around data and how a data-first security model will help organizations to enhance their security posture. It was based on our discussions with most customers as consultants. They normally say that they've been investing a lot on cybersecurity. In fact, the cybersecurity spend has increased multifold in the last 5 years. But at the same time, because of the way the current landscape is and the way the attack surface is changing for our customers, they're still not comfortable and confident on defending their networks against advanced cyber attacks and prevent against data breaches. We strongly believe by helping organizations to have a data-first security model, it's going to help organizations significantly to have a predictive framework around detecting threats and containing data breaches, because data and users are the two core elements which are important for organizations. And these are the two elements we strongly believe are in the control of an organization. while threats is something that the hacker controls. So if organizations also have controls around data and users, it's going to help them to establish an effective framework. So the whole discussion in this session is going to be around building a data first security model. Vikas has already gone through the agenda. We wanted to start with the panel discussion, but like Vikas mentioned, Rishi is held somewhere. You should be joining in the next 10 minutes. So we'll start with our overview on value propositions. Scott will be doing it. And then we'll follow up with the panel discussion where we'll be discussing around the challenges and benefits of having a data-centric security model. And then we'll do a quick demonstration on how our platform will help organizations to establish this model and what use cases we'll be able to address through our platform. And lastly, we also are keen to announce that we'll be doing complimentary data risk assessments if customers wants to get exposed to our platform and see what risk we'll be able to uncover in their environment. So with this, I'll pass on to Scott. So Scott, yeah, before Scott does his presentation, we're really glad that our CEO wanted to connect with you all, and he left a short video message. So we want to start with that message from our CEO, and then Scott will take over and do the presentation. Playing the video now.
Hello everyone, I'm Yaki Feitelson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Varonis. It's a great honor to speak with you today about our company commitment to the Indian market. We have many global customers and partners, and with a strong presence in India. They are using our technology today and seeing great success. There is a massive demand for Varonis in the region, driven first and foremost by the criticality of information, of data, but partially by the new personal data protection bill in India. We have hired Mahesh as a country manager to grow our business in the region, and we have established teams in New Delhi, Mumbai, and Chennai. There is no limit to what we can achieve together in India with future potential of your country to play roles in areas like engineering and support. For us as a company, and I hope that we will be able to articulate clearly, there is just so much innovation ahead of us than behind us, and really the most practical way that you can protect critical information while balancing the constant tension between productivity and security. I'm grateful that you gave us your valuable time and attention, and you are in the great hands of Scott and Mahesh, and I'm sure that it's going to be a very productive session.
Right, hope you were able to listen to the video properly. Just in case if you couldn't, like Vikas mentioned, we'll also upload the video that you can get access to later on. Over to you, Scott.
Yeah, look, thanks, Mahesh. And thanks everybody for taking the time out to kind of join us here today. So look, I'll just spend a few minutes taking you through the sort of Varonis overview and value proposition before we jump into the panel session. And I really wanted to start with this slide, which is, you know, if you have critical data, someone wants it. If you think about virtually every breach that we see today, that we read about today, it almost always involves data. You know, if you think about ransomware attacks, people trying to break into your networks, they're trying to get their hands on data and encrypt that data and cause disruption to your business. Or they're trying to take copies of your data, steal that data, and then hold you to ransom and threaten to release that data. Or maybe it's inside a threat that you're worried about. And again, it's you know, leaking of data, leaking of IP, some of that data being stolen. And so it's interesting for me, given my background, that as cyber professionals, we've invested a lot in really trying to strengthen the perimeter, strengthen the endpoints. We've put in place technology like SIEM and SOC and MDR and XDR. But this data space for me has been fairly neglected. And a lot of the organizations that I speak to across the region really struggle to answer some, you know, what I think are some fairly basic questions. And so Mahesh, if you just jump to the next slide for me, you know, these are the sorts of questions I think a lot of businesses struggle with. You know, first questions around, you know, is my data at risk? Where have I got sensitive information, both on premise and in the cloud? Do I know what sensitive information is out there? Do I know who's got access to that sensitive information? Do I know if it's been overexposed? Do I know if it's been shared externally? Do I know if it's been shared with everybody inside my organization? So that sort of, is my data at risk style question is one that organizations struggle with. The second one is more around breaches. So can you detect easily if data is being misused? If I'm on with Mahesh and Mahesh starts behaving strangely and starts accessing a whole lot of sensitive information that he doesn't normally access as part of his day-to-day role, do I have an ability to detect that today? If I'm attacked, can I easily work out what data has been touched, maybe what data has been stolen? How quickly can I run those investigations across my environment today? And then the third area is really around compliance. So, do you understand what compliance content you're storing? Again, who has got access to that? How is it being accessed? Can I prove that I am compliant? And can I support activities like, data subject access requests? So easily figure out what information I'm storing on my customers and partners and demonstrate that to people like auditors. So it's kind of interesting to me that a lot of organizations we're speaking with today still struggle to answer some of these fairly basic questions when it comes to data. And Mahesh, if you jump to the next slide for me, this for me is a really interesting one, and I think it's pretty telling of the sort of problem we're dealing with, which is that today, on average, when a new employee starts in an organization, they have on average access to about 17 million files, when the reality is that they probably only need access to a few thousand files to really do their job. And so this concept of a single user account, if that single user account is compromised, that has a huge blast radius. So you think about that, I could compromise a single account, and with that single account compromise, I could encrypt 17 million files, some of which may be hugely mission critical or impactful for me as a business. I'm sure many of you have kind of been reading about some of the lapsus threat activity that's been happening over the last couple of weeks. One of the things that's been really interesting for me about that is that they've been buying access to accounts. So they've been doing really simple things like, we've got Ravish on the line with us. They've been going to approach people like Ravish and saying, hey, can I give you $1,000 for access to your username, your password, and your MFA details? And so investing all of that money in trying to stop people getting in to the network when what we're seeing in the threat landscape at the moment is people just buying access to get in, it is a real problem. And so one of the things we think about as Varonis is how can we contain this blast radius, right? What can we do to help? How can we set you up so that users only have access to the information that they really need to be able to do their job? And so that's exactly what we do. Through technology and through automation, we can figure out exactly what information people need access to, and we can dynamically update your security groups and permission models so that users only have access to the information that they need to do their jobs. If a single account gets compromised, the blast radius is much, much smaller than it would otherwise be. The other thing that we do is we watch the data. So every single data access, every single read, every single write, every single share, we track that activity. If you move on to the next slide for me, Mahesh, and we baseline in your environment what normal looks like. So what do I normally do? What time of the day do I normally log in? What device do I normally log in from? What information do I normally access? How do I normally access that information? And so we get this baseline of what normal behavior looks like inside your environment so that we can alert on abnormal access to information, because we really feel that that is one of the best ways to identify cyber activity, malicious cyber activity, is abnormal data access. And so, Mahesh, if you jump to the next slide, the way our technology works is we monitor all of your critical data sources, whether they're on-premise or whether they're in the cloud. So think, on-prem file servers, SAN, NAS, cloud stores like Office 365, AWS, Box, GitHub, Jira, Zoom. We monitor all of those different data stores. And the first thing we do is we interrogate all of those data stores and we figure out where you've got sensitive information stored. So we look for personally identifiable information. We look for PCI data, credit card information. We look for sensitive financial content. We allow you to implement your own data classification rules. But the first thing we do is figure out where sensitive content lives. Then we figure out who's got access to that sensitive information. And where have you got sensitive information that's been overexposed, that's been shared externally, that's been shared with everybody inside an organization? And then we track and monitor activity. So again, what does normal usage of that data look like in your environment so that we can alert on abnormal access to that information? And importantly, it's not just about notifying you of where you've got problems and where you've got exposure when it comes to data, but it's also about reaching back into these data stores and fixing the problems that we find. So if we find that you've got sensitive financial information that's been shared with everybody through a Teams site, we can automatically go and update the permissions associated with your sensitive content, so that only people who need access to that sensitive content have access to that sensitive content. And so we find that supports the three kind of main use cases that you can see on the right. So data protection, making sure users only have access to the information they need to do their job. Threat detection and response, so alerting on unusual access to content. And the privacy and compliance style use cases, figuring out where you've got regulatory content stored, figuring out who's got access to that regulatory content, and making sure you're able to report and track access to that regulatory content. So that in a kind of nutshell is how our technology works. Mahesh, if you kind of move on to the next slide, often we get questions about, so where does Varonis fit in the security ecosystem? We've already invested in DLP or data classification. We've already got a SIEM platform. Where does kind of Varonis really fit in this picture? And so we position ourselves really as being complementary to lots of other security controls that you've likely already invested in, but taking a primary focus around data. And so I've just noticed a question through in the chat around how does Varonis understand what organizations' sensitive information is? Great question. So we've got a bunch of out-of-the-box, if you like, classification rules for what sensitive information is, and it's all the standard things you'd expect. So PII, PCI, healthcare-related information, GDPR-related information. But we also give you the tools to define in your own language what's sensitive for you. And so, give you an example. We work with lots of law firms around the region. Law firms have often got this concept of case numbers. And so we will automatically build classification rules that look for those case numbers. Or maybe you're a hospital and you've got medical record numbers. We can integrate with things like databases to look for medical record numbers. But there's quite a powerful user interface, which we'll show you in the demonstration, to build your own classification rules to help identify what is sensitive in your environment. And then once we understand what is sensitive, we can look at who's got access to that sensitive information and how can we reduce access back to that sort of least privilege access model. And absolutely, we support things like sensitivity labels. So once we understand what's sensitive, we can automatically tag that content as being sensitive or as being restricted or as being classified. And then you can use technologies like DLP to read those labels and automatically encrypt that content. One of the challenges we see with DLP, though, is if I go back to that example around a single user having access to 17 million files, implementing DLP is not going to stop that. I'm still going to have access to 17 million files. Yes, you'll have some DLP control on those 17 million files, But we would advocate that before you implement DLP, the first thing you want to do is fix the problem of overexposure, so that I've only got access to the few thousand or few tens of thousands of files I might need to do my job, and then implement DLP on just the few thousand files I maybe need to access, rather than implementing the DLP on all of the 17 million files I can currently access in the environment today. So look, that's a little bit about the sort of the Varonis value proposition. I think what we kind of wanted to do next was jump into a little bit of a panel discussion and maybe expand on some of the problems I've spoken about through this presentation. And then once we get through the panel, we'd love to we'll show you the technology, right? And you can see it in action and get a feel for how it works in practice.
Thank you,
Mahesh,
Scott.
I might pass back to you to kind of moderate the panel for us.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you so much. That was insightful. Because I believe Rishi is in. Rishi, can you?
Yeah,
can you speak?
He's there on video.
Hi, Mahesh.
Okay. Yeah, hi, Rishi. Thank you so much, for joining. We know there are a few things that you're stuck up with, but thanks for taking time for this discussion. Do you want to do a quick introduction, Rishi? I'm sure you don't need any introduction, but just in case if people don't know you, just a quick introduction, and then we can get the panel discussion going.
Sure, Mahesh. All people on the panel are my friends, but just for a formal introduction, so, I'm Vice President Global Security at Concentrix, been with the organization for 15 years, responsible for all cyber defense, data protection initiatives at Concentrix.
Great. Thanks, Rishi. So I'll be the moderator for this topic, which is building a data-first security model, and we'll predominantly discuss some challenges and benefits. So what I thought when I was just planning to moderate this is just pick some common questions that most customers would have, in establishing a data security model within their organizations and have a discussion around it. But if there are any other questions that you want to discuss on this topic, please feel free to type that in the chat window, and we'll either address it now or later. If you don't have time, we'll respond to that later on. So Rishi, I'll just start with you. One thing that we normally hear from most customers is that they've been investing a lot on cybersecurity, and data security is not new to them. They've been also investing a lot of controls. Spending money on a lot of controls like DLP, data classification, e-discovery solutions. But when they're asked a question on how confident they are in reducing data risks or data breaches, mostly the answer is still data security to be a top concern for them. Why do you think that's happening, and what are the key challenges that you think organizations are facing in ensuring that they're defending against data breaches?
Yeah, thanks, Mahesh. And I think you're spot on. We as security professionals invest a lot on the infrastructure side, EDR, XDR, as Scott was talking about. And maybe that's a natural evolution that we see. Protect your infrastructure first. And when you get some sort of assurance that the controls are right in place, the second thing is let's look at the data. I think it's more should be inside out approach rather than outside in approach. Because the analogy that I give is if you are investigating a fraud, you really follow the money trail. And then as you follow the money trail, you obviously reach to an adversary or a fraudster. But in this case, unfortunately, data is a little left out part, right? I think many friends are here. It'll be very difficult for anyone to say how much data they have got in their organization and which all compliance requirements they are obligated to. Nobody will be able to say with 100% confidence that I have this much data and I am obligated to these many compliance, because of virtue of being in the industry for so many years, there will be stale data. There'll be data which will be obligated to different compliance requirements, which we don't know of, and coming from business. So I think that's one of the reasons we never feel confident that despite having all the controls, because the ultimate destination of any adversary is data. So if any of your infra control breaks in, they get access to the data.
Great, great thought, Rishi. And I completely agree. I think one of the challenges that organizations have is like knowing what data is sensitive. And IT or security, based on again our discussions with most customers as consultants, they get only visibility around 10% of information that they think which are sensitive in the organization compared to the overall information that probably is sensitive, because business users are the ones who create, share, and receive information, and IT and security teams lack visibility around it. So great points, Rishi. Scott, just want to get your perspective. How do you think globally customers are addressing this challenge, and what are the key challenges for them in enforcing a data-first security model?
Yeah, good question, Mahesh. Look, I think there's a few, right? I think Rishi made a really good point that I think this data-first security model really is kind of an evolution and a maturing of how organizations are approaching the problem. I think if you go back in time, protecting the perimeter was absolutely a viable approach and is something that every organization needs to do. But, with the explosion of, we talked about COVID and work from home and users coming in from everywhere and the perimeter disappearing, I think it's more and more important than ever to be able to protect the data and to be able to monitor the data. And so I think when it comes to the challenges of being able to do that, I think it's needing to marry up. You need to be able to understand where your sensitive information is. So the first thing you need to do is to be able to classify and figure out what's sensitive. Then you need to look at the permission side of things. So you need to marry up who's got access to that sensitive information. Where have you got sensitive information that's maybe been overexposed or overshared? And then the third piece is the activity piece for me, which is you need to understand how that data is being used so that you know what normal usage looks like. Sanjay's asked a kind of question in the chat around, how do we differentiate between authorized usage of data versus, if you like, unauthorized usage of data? It's a really simple question, but a really difficult problem to solve, right? Because you need to understand what applications normally do, how they normally behave, how users normally act, how users normally behave, so that you can alert on meaningful deviations to that sort of behavior. So I think they're the things for me, Mahesh. I think, you need to understand where your sensitive information is. You need to understand the permissions model so you can understand where you've got exposure, and you need to understand user behavior.
Great. Thanks, Scott. Thanks a lot. And thanks, Sanjay, for dropping that question. Rishi, one of the challenges that we normally hear, and we also discussed this a while ago when we had a meeting, is the requirements of businesses have in a way restricted security teams to enforce strong measures around protecting the way they collaborate. I mean, collaboration is happening. Organizations are businesses themselves are deciding what applications are needed. They want to collaborate easily and freely, and that in a way is restricting security teams to come up with stringent governance controls around collaboration or adoption of cloud. So what would be your recommendations for organizations on balancing productivity and security, and how do you think organizations should approach this challenge, or the security team should approach this challenge?
Yeah, and Mahesh, very relevant point, right? So security, unfortunately, is not 0 and 1 at this time.
Right. Because
if you are too stringent on security, you will give rise to shadow IT. Because if people start feeling that whenever I reach out to security for approvals, the blank answer is no, then I would rather spin up my own server in AWS and do my development. And then that can be very expensive for the organization. Now, and as I said, right, the more and more you start getting assurance on the infra controls, the more and more you think about the data and inside out approach. And that's a natural evolution that we are seeing. Obviously, it should have been opposite if you ask me. But it has to be permissible, but still governed by security. I'm saying if somebody comes to you that I need Teams, right? Yes, I can give you Teams. But will you have visibility as a security team if any confidential data being given out, if unrestricted permissions are there? Will you be able to alert the user? So will you be able to give that access with confidence? Because if you don't have that confidence, then your default answer is no. You cannot have Teams access because it's too much of an exposure to the organization. So we need to do a balancing act, give access, govern it properly. I think that will be my take on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think great point, Rishi. And we had this discussion too. Like, security should be treated as an enabler by business, and I strongly believe we have good braking systems in high-speeding cars only to give confidence for the driver to go fast, right? So security should be treated that way. Businesses should consider security to be an enabler so that it's there for them to be more productive and collaborate easily. So yeah, having governance around it is extremely important. So, I mean, Scott touched on the lapses point, and I want to take your thoughts on this, Scott. I mean, while the attack looks really complex, but still the measures that the Lapsus team has done is, following simple attacking techniques like social engineering attacks, phishing, and things like that. And they've compromised a lot of organizations, big brands, and I'm sure they have the best of breed controls in place. They must have huge security teams in place. But do you think by organizations having controls to measure user behavior would help them to detect such advanced attacks? You already touched on it, but if we just can spend some time on how should they be exactly looking at behavior, and what would be the challenge in tracking user behaviors over a period of time? If you can just share your thoughts on that, it'll be helpful, Scott.
Yeah, so I think we would advocate that you kind of need to operate as though you've already been breached. And so, a motivated attacker is going to find a way in, whether that way in is through social engineering, whether that way in is through, just buying legitimate credentials off one of your employees. I think you need to assume that a motivated attacker is going to be able to get inside your network. And so if you then look at, all right, what is a motivated attacker then looking for? They're really looking for data. And so our job as security professionals is to make that as difficult as possible for them. And so if that user account that ends up getting compromised only has access to a small amount of data, then, we can kind of contain the blast radius, right? Instead of them having access to maybe 17 million files that they can encrypt or exfiltrate, maybe they've only got access to a few thousand files. So that makes the attacker's job much harder, because if they're trying to get all of your content, they're going to have to compromise multiple accounts to be able to do that. And that gives us a better chance to defend and catch them and stop them. And so as it becomes sort of more about behavior, over time, we get, people are quite predictable, it turns out. If you think about our, what we do day in, day out, the sorts of information that we access, the sorts of devices we log in from, the times of day we typically do our work, we're actually pretty predictable. And so the way I normally behave day in, day out is very different from how somebody is likely to behave if they've compromised my account. And so it's actually, once we've been running in an environment for more than about 3 months, we do get very meaningful deviations in behavior when an account has been compromised versus just a normal user going about their day-to-day business. So look, I do believe that this user behavior analytics and baselining normal behavior in an environment is a really useful way to detect compromise.
And I fully agree, Scott. I mean, even if these advanced threat groups get user credentials, it's going to be extremely tough for them to mimic a user's normal behavior. So yeah, if organizations find a way to baseline their behavior and look for deviations, they are in a much better state to predict and contain breaches. I fully agree with you on that.
Yeah, look, it's not just. Sorry, Mahesh, I was just going to say it's obviously not just about protecting from that external breach. I think often we focus on that external breach as being a big one. The other thing it's really useful for is the insider threat piece.
Yeah.
We've had some really interesting engagements. Again, a kind of law firm springs to mind where partner at a law firm started to download a whole lot of sensitive information, a whole lot of old case files. And it turns out that partner had resigned about 2 weeks ago and was taking a whole lot of IP out of the organization that they were planning to take to a competitor. So it's also really useful for kind of malicious insider style identification as well.
Yeah, great. And Rishi, I mean, this is a huge topic and we can speak for long, but I just want this to be the closing thing. And one last question to you before I close it, Rishi. I think increasing awareness for users is becoming extremely important, and organizations already have a lot of programs around enhancing user awareness, but we normally see they're being mostly reactive, and still users fall prey to phishing emails, and they still probably fall prey to giving credentials to people. So what do you think should organizations be doing to enforce awareness campaigns that are really effective and measure how users are aware from a security perspective, Rishi?
See, Mahesh, my response may not be very well liked within the business, but I strongly feel that when you run a phishing simulation, after 4 cycles, it becomes a formality, right? They know this is coming.
Right.
They will attend a 2-minute module.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm following a couple of large organizations which have very structured phishing program, which is tied to HR disciplinary grid. So if you fell for phishing 3 times, you're out. And it is structured. This is given to the people. And as I said, right, this is not very well liked by HR. This is not very well liked by business. But when you are in a situation, you are handling an incident when one phishing is capable of bringing down your network, or you being spending endless nights to mitigating the situation, everybody is understanding this. I know at least, I don't name the company, but I know at least 3 big companies who've gone this 3 strike rules. If you have 3 times you're falling for a phishing, you're out of the company. So, and we all know that courses, annual InfoSec, privacy, they're good. They strike. You just stick the compliance requirements. Yeah. But what is the efficacy of your program is really matters. And this comes with enforcement. So unless you are fining somebody for crossing a red light, people will do cross red lights. So.
Yeah, I think a great comment, Rishi. Yeah, I think this is becoming extremely important for organizations because hackers are going after user credentials. And most of the breaches and attacks that have happened are because of users exhibiting unintentional ignorant behavior. So it's very critical for organizations to elevate awareness with users. And like Rishi mentioned, also have stringent governance and enforcement measures to ensure that users are adhering to what they learn during these awareness campaigns. And also, I think technologies are there to help organizations to enforce real-time awareness, like as and when they're about to do something wrong, then the awareness campaigns actually kicks in and makes them know what would be the risk that they would have brought for the organization. So, like I said, it's a big topic we can discuss for even the entire hour. But since we are short of time, just closing comments from you, Scott and Rishi, and then we'll wrap the panel discussion.
Yeah, look, actually, I was just going to, I see Ashish has just asked a question in the panel around, data classification and the challenges around, relying on users to make the kind of the tool work, which I think is an interesting question as well. And so, look, from a Varonis standpoint, we've kind of engineered our technology to not be reliant on sort of users to do data classification. So we sort of provide, if you like, automated data classification, and then we do remediation of things like permissions, again, without requiring a data owner. The last thing you want to have to do is go to a data owner and say, all right, who's really got, who should have access to this file or folder? And so by baselining what normal behavior looks like, we can tell over time who should be accessing certain types of content. And based on that, what normal usage looks like, we can dynamically update sort of security groups and permissions to be able to get away from that reliance around a data owner. But that's, that's a fairly detailed topic in itself. So I probably don't want to go too much deeper, but happy to take that one offline.
Yeah, sure, Scott. Thanks, Scott. Rishi, closing comments from you, Rishi.
Yeah, just one line, discover, classify, purge, protect. That's it.
Great, Rishi, as always. So thank you so much, Scott and Rishi, for this great insights that you've given on the topic. And like I mentioned earlier when I started my presentation, while organizations have deployed a lot of threat-centric controls and at different layers from endpoint to cloud, I think if organizations also balance these by having controls around data and users, which I strongly believe are in an organization's control, they'll be able to establish a predictive security framework and detect threats much faster and respond to that before the threat becomes too serious. So with that, I think we have another 5 minutes, because so I'll just have to do a very quick demonstration, and then we'll open up for Q&A. Can one of you confirm if you can see my screen?
Yeah, Mahesh, it's visible.
Great, thank you. So like I said, I just have another 3 minutes, so I'll be very, very fast, and we can obviously do a detailed one later on if needed. So this is the alert dashboard. I'll just come to this a bit later. But what I wanted to first focus is on the visibility that we will be able to provide and help organizations evaluate the risk postures that on the various data assets that we monitor. So on our cloud platform, you just have monitoring certain file servers, SharePoint Online, OneDrive, GDP, Active Directory, and also Exchange on-prem. So I've just clicked file servers just to give you an insight in terms of the visibility that we provide on the various risks that we see with this file server. So, and these widgets are customizable, by the way. So here you could see that one of the risks that we have found out is almost 3,000 sensitive folders are having sensitive information, and anybody within that organization would have access to those sensitive folders. So Scott mentioned about overexposure, and this is one common finding that we have in most organizations. Normally at least 30% of folders and sites that exist in SharePoint are open for everybody to access within the organization. And this elevates the risk significantly. And you could understand and what would happen if a user becomes rogue, or if the user credentials gets compromised, then that particular attacker would be able to get access to these sensitive folders. And if you want to know what these folders are, just in a matter of few clicks, you'd be able to understand what are the various folders in that particular server which has got sensitive information. And these are the various, we have a lot of predefined policies like Scott mentioned, which can help organizations to look for sensitive information. And we also have a policy pack, or we are in the process of building policies to help organizations to also detect Indian PII and comply to the data protection bill that is impending. And if you want to also understand the concentration of sensitive information in various folders which have open access, you can sort it by size, and you could see here that in this case, a legal folder within this file server has got a lot of sensitive information, and anybody in the organization will be able to access it. So other than giving, and quickly, I'll just tell, we also will be able to help organizations understand the hygiene levels around directory services. I think this is important because we still see organizations not maintaining enough hygiene levels with Active Directories and Azure IDs, and this could be a huge threat for allowing organizations or attackers to steal credentials, or an insider who becomes malicious to create complex data threats for that particular organization. And we also extend this to SharePoint Online. And again, based on our discussions with customers, one of the challenges that they have, especially when they use Teams as their collaboration tool, is to get visibility on how organizations are using Teams and what all SharePoint sites get created because of various teams that exist within that organization. What sensitive information are there in those teams, and what is that exposure of that SharePoint Online site, right? Because typically with Teams, users can create their own teams, which essentially means that they create their own groups in AD, Azure AD. They create their own SharePoint site, and they would be able to allow to share information internally, externally. And organizations really struggle to find a way on how information is governed within SharePoint Online, especially when they use Teams. And we will help organizations to get that visibility. And like the way I showed you for file servers, you'll be able to also understand what all sensitive information is there in which SharePoint site and things like that. So with this visibility, we also would help organizations to contain the breaches. I'll quickly show you how we do that. I mean, reduce overexposure automatically to our platform. So you could see here that these are the various data assets that we are monitoring. And one of the advantages that we provide compared to other tools, especially discovery tools, is we enumerate the entire folder structure. And at any point in time, if you want to know, like you think probably one user credentials got compromised, and you want to understand what all folders and files that particular user has got access to, by just typing in the username and just clicking on that username, we provide complete visibility around the various folders and sites that particular user has got access to. You can see the ones that are highlighted in green are the folders that the user has got access to, and these are the sites that the user has got access to. And we also tell you what permissions that particular user has got on various folders in that particular file server and site, SharePoint site. So when I showed you the file server risk dashboard, we found that legal has got the legal folder has got the most amount of sensitive information, which is open for everybody. So when I click on the legal folder, you could quickly see that everyone as an access group has got access, which is a big risk for the organization, right? And if you also want to know what are the other groups this everyone as a group has got access to, like we provide bidirectional visibility. I mean, all you have to do is like just double click on it, and then it tells what all folders and sites where global access is provided for that organization. So again, you could see that these are the folders where global access is provided for everybody. So with this visibility, like Scott mentioned earlier, through our platform, we also will be able to remove overexposure. What we can do is by just right clicking here, saying removing permissions for this legal folder, what we do is we actually sandbox this change in our own platform, because we understand there could be probably a lot of users who are leveraging this global access group to access a lot of folders in that particular file server. So if you go and remove this permission, it can cause business disruption and users are going to complain. So what we allow is quickly we sandbox this and we help organizations understand which all users and groups have access to this particular legal folder through that everyone or global access group, and give you that visibility and automatically create a group in AD for that group, for that specific users, and then revoke access for everyone as an access group, so that you will be able to, organizations will be able to reduce overexposure risks, at the same time also ensure that there are no business disruption. So you could see that on legal folder, these are the users who have got access to that folder through everyone as an access group. And you can just click on a specific user and it tells what are the subfolders within that folder that the user has got access to and what permissions do they have. So we map all of this and create automatically a group in AD and allow only these users to access that information. Because I'll just take another 2 minutes and then we can move on for the Q&A. Sorry about that. And while I showed you this for a specific folder, we also allow organizations to do this for all folders and all SharePoint sites through a single click. I said I'll come back to the alerts. I'll quickly move on to the alert section to just tell you what sort of insights we'll be able to provide with our alerting dashboard. So these are we categorize alerts by severity, and it tells groups alerts for all data assets that we're monitoring. You can also choose specific assets here. And then we also show the top alerted devices, which are creating alerts from a data access perspective, top alerted users, top alerted threat models. We also recommend organizations to have watch list. So anybody who's resigned and are on notice, anybody who's got a lower appraisal score, anybody who's repeated offenders who fall prey to phishing simulations and things like that, you put them under watch list and have a stringent monitoring policy. And the best part about our alerting dashboard is we also group alerts based on the various stages in an attack kill chain. And organizations can quickly check, like in this case, for instance, data exfiltration. You can just click on this. It immediately tells what are the various alerts that we have identified from a data exfiltration perspective. And it tells in this case that Benjamin was accessing a lot of data and uploading it to personal webmail sites. Because we also get telemetry from perimeters like proxies, DNS, VPNs, and we also pull events from Azure AD. And along with the data access activity logs, when we combine these, we'll be able to build those behavior models and help organizations to detect those alerts. And at any point in time, you can just click on the alert details if you want to know more about that alert. And then it gives a complete overview and provides rich context to an incident analyst to understand what that alert is. It tells who the user is. In this case, it's Benjamin. And then what is the data that is accessed? It tells that what are the sensitive files that got accessed in the past 24 hours. This triggered alert for the first time, and so many GDPR files got accessed in the past 24 hours. And he also uploaded the information to mail.google.com. So in a way, it's very easy for an organization to understand that it's a data exfiltration attempt. And we also integrate with SIMS or platforms. We can pass this alert to those platforms. And if the incident analyst thinks this to be a event and the user credentials probably got compromised, they can execute a PowerShell command to disable that particular user access for a specific duration from accessing any data types. We are end of the demo because of the time. Like the way I said earlier, if you want to know more about our platform, we'll be happy to connect with you and do a detailed demo whenever you think it's appropriate. So with that, Vikas, over to you. And I'm sorry, we have exceeded 5 minutes.
No problems. It's a very exciting session that we had today and very interesting panel discussion as well. Maybe we can have a separate session just for demo, right? No panel, no session, just demo, something like that. Maybe we can discuss. So thanks everyone for joining. Now for do we have, so it's already 11:55. We can still take a couple of questions, maybe just 2 questions if somebody want to ask. Please go ahead, raise your hand and I will unmute you guys. So let's take quick questions, guys. Go ahead, raise your hand. If not, then Scott, there's a question in the chat window. You wanna pick that? Maybe you, Ravish, anybody? Okay, Anil wants to ask a question. I'm going to allow mic. I'm going to allow camera as well. Anil bhai, go ahead, ask your question.
Thank you, Vikas. Team, wonderful demo and a good product. My question to you is like the demo that you were showing, and then one of the demo, like the entire directory hierarchy was like emulated, right? Now, from an administrator perspective, right, what is the kind of data exposure that admin has using those consoles? And how do you prevent accidental access to the administrator or people with privilege access?
Right. Scott, should I take that, Scott?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so firstly, I mean, it's a great question, Anil, and thanks for sharing that. Firstly, while we enumerate the folder structure, we actually don't allow the admin to access data within those folders unless he's got privileges to access the data. So whatever information that we are showing is just the metadata. We just tell the path where the file is and what is the risk exposure levels because of everyone having access to that. And don't actually allow the admin to get access to the data if he does not have access to the data. Secondly, we also have role-based access controls, and we recommend organizations to have the policies that they have to ensure only appropriate users are allowed to manage things on various security tools. So we can enforce those role-based access controls to ensure that only authorized people are allowed to make changes and interpret results from the incidents that we show within our tool. Anil, I hope I answered your question.
And Mahesh, there's a question in here as well about our sort of Indian partner ecosystem plan. Do you want to take that one as well?
Yeah, so we are 100% channel centric. We are going to have a 2-tier channel model. So we are in the process of appointing a distributor, and we already have signed up 9 partners across the country. And very soon we'll be communicating those messages through our partners with you all. So yeah, we're going to be completely channel centric, and we strongly believe in our channel ecosystem.
Great, great. Sounds good. Last question, Manoji, please go ahead, unmute yourself and ask your question. You gotta be fast. Okay, I'm unmuting Devnath ji. Devnath ji, go ahead, ask your question now. This is the last one. Vijay ji, go ahead.
So maybe while they're about to ask a question, one thing that I wanted to mention is whatever we showed in the demo, we also would be able to do that in your own environment. We do a no obligatory risk assessment, and we'll be engaging our SMEs and incident response team to help you uncover risks that we identify during the risk assessment. So if you are interested, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll connect with you.
Perfect. Awesome. 11:58. Let me do a quick closure. So great session, guys. Really enjoyed attending it myself. And thanks everyone for joining in. The secret somebody is asking to download this certificate is backup. OK, the password to download the certificate is backup, and I'll come to that. And I hope, guys, you understand that today there's a LinkedIn contest as well. As we started the session, I had explained the rules about the LinkedIn contest. They are on the screen again one more time. So all you got to do is you have to share your learning from the session on LinkedIn along with the certificate of participation, right? How do you download the participation certificate? What you do is you go to EliteCISOs website, click on event, click on upcoming event, and then click on CP certificate. Once you click on it, it will take you to a different Google form. Put your email address where you want your certificate to come, put your full name, and the password to download certificate is backup, right? We talked about data security and all, but backup is also very important. And why backup as a password today? Because today, 31st March is a World Backup Day. Okay, guys. Wow. So it's a World Backup Day, March 31st. Go ahead, guys. Look at your personal data, look at your enterprise and see whether you are backing up your data as well or not. It is one of the very good defense against ransomwares and other threats. So that's why the today's password is backup. And with that, let me come to the Wheel of Fortune. So this Wheel of Fortune, we got about 500 registrations and we had about 255 attendees. But this Wheel of Fortune is specific for people who liked and supported EliteCISOs post on LinkedIn, right? So about 142 people liked. All those people name are here. All those 142 people. So I will spin it. If your name comes, go to the chat and say, yes, you are in the session. And Ravish, may I request you to monitor the chat and see, if somebody says yes. So good luck, guys. The giveaway is soundbar. So the LinkedIn contest is different. You will post and we will review your post and you will get Apple AirPod if you are a winner. This one specifically is for Wheel of Fortune. So I'm going to spin it now for the first one. And there are two soundbars today. So the first winner is Mr. Mohan, I believe member of Chennai chapter. Mr. Mohan, if you are there in the chat, if you are there in the session, go to the chat and say yes. And now I'm spinning for the second one. The second one goes to Mr. Anil Chiplankar from Mumbai. One of my mentor as well. I went through ISO 27001 lead auditor training long back, maybe 10 years back with him. So Anil sir, congratulations. If you are there in the session, go to the chat and say yes. With this, thanks a lot everyone for joining. And as you know, that every week we conduct these sessions. So next week on Thursday, 11 o'clock, we have a session with Netscope. Registrations are open. So if you would like, you can go ahead and register as well. With this, thanks everyone. 12:01, perfect timing, just 1 minute late. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Varonis team for joining in. Bye for now.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day. Bye.
Yeah, bye.